There you go. So same thing as last time. Transition. Thing. On the computer right now.
Wait a minute, what?
So you hit transition, then go back.
So now
So now you're on the camera
and on the screen. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now I'm on camera.
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. Would you double check with Mark to make sure Mark's on over there in Hudson? Okay. We're here to talk about your permit test for a commercial driver's license. Do I have any Wisconsin residents? One Wisconsin. Okay. Yep. And okay. Anybody doing Class B? I got one B. Do I got two Bs? Just one B? No two Bs? Okay. And then the rest B, Class B. And then the rest of you doing Class A? Yes. Okay. All right. Just one thing to bring to mind right from the get-go. Are you aware that if you test in a truck with an automatic transmission, you're restricted to automatic transmissions? Yes. Okay. All right. Just so that you're aware of that. All right. What we're going to start off with is the handout inside of your workbook that you've been given. You all have the green workbook. So dig out the handout. We're going to go over the mechanics of what it takes to get a permit test to start with. Okay. So to get your permit, you hang on a second. I gotta go switch this. I have some people that are watching this class over in Hudson, so I want to share this information with them. Okay, so here's the handout. So to get a CDL permit, first and foremost, you need a regular car license. All right. Then secondly, you're going to need a certified birth certificate or a valid passport. What is a certified birth certificate? It's got the little stamp on it, okay? The little seal.
Can it be a copy of it?
No, it can't be a copy of it. That's the point. It's got to be a certified copy, which is not a copy of the certified copy. Does that make sense? They won't even accept an original. If you show up with the original birth certificate you got from that your doctor gave your parents?
The ABC video needs a few minutes, yeah. Right in line.
Okay. All right. You need the original, you need the certified birth certificate. Your original birth certificate with your feet print won't work. Okay? Won't work. You have to have that certified copy of it. Okay? All right. Now, for the Minnesota manual that you're going to study, the Wisconsin manual is very similar. That will suffice for what you're studying. Okay? All of the material you need to know in order to pass this test is in the manual. Okay? There's a federal rule in play that says everything on the test has to be in the manual. Right? So that's good news because that gives us clarity as to where we get the answers that we need to know in order to pass the test, is right out of the manual. Okay? The manual was written in the middle 1980s. It needs to be revised. It needs to be updated. When that'll happen, who knows? I've actually made an attempt through our trade association to do that, but haven't gotten any cooperation on it. But everything you need to know to pass the test is in the manual. Okay? What we have given you today in that green book are sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. That's everything you would need to know to get a Class A or Class B permit. What the green book we've handed you does not have, it does not have material on buses, which is section 4. There's an appendix at the beginning of it for school buses. That's not included. And then we don't have the material on doubles and triples or tankers or hazmat or the sections on the driving test. So what we've done is condensed it strictly to what you need to know for the permit test. Okay? For Class A, you want to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. For Class B, sections 1, 2, 3, and 5. Skipping section 6, which is combinations. All right? Now for practice tests, I'm recommending cdltest.co as the go-to website for practice tests. Now, people, there are tons and tons of websites out there to go to do practice tests. I highly recommend this one. I can't tell you how many people over the years have come to me and said, yeah, I understand. I go take these practice tests and I pass the practice test. I go take the real thing and I fail the sucker. What's going on? Well, what's going on is you're going to the wrong website. That's what's going on, okay? And did you know this? DMV.org is not a government website. DMV.org is not a government website. That is a private website, and they are trying to sell you stuff. Okay? They got free stuff that's no good, and then they got other stuff they want to sell you. What a good marketing ploy. Give you crap for free and then sell you the better stuff. Okay? Now, cdltest.co is free, and it is about 96% accurate to the Minnesota test. It's the closest thing I can find to the real thing. And interestingly enough, I am prohibited from creating a test that's accurate. I'm not allowed to do that. Okay, the state of Minnesota and the state of Wisconsin, both states where we're licensed, prohibit me from duplicating state tests. So I can't do what cdltest.co does. I can certainly direct you there. In fact, you can gain access to it through our website. All right. Hi. Now, the CDL manual is available online, both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Let's see if these guys have joined us yet here. Because that doesn't really tell me. But let's do this. I'm going to go to the online manual here. That noise you hear, that's somebody practicing for their inspection phase of the road test. So here's the CDL manual. As the handout tells you, you access this through mindriveinfo.org. You can also get to it through our website. Now, there's two things I really like about the online manual. First of all, I can do this. So now I can read it. You younger people don't understand, but we do. And then the other thing is, I really like the search engine this thing has, because it is very specific to what you searched for. So I'm going to create a search box by hitting Control F. I'm going to type in slack adjusters. And it takes me only to those two words, in the plural, not the singular. See, some search engines, it'll take you to a wide variety of variations of what you've typed in, where this will not. So what that does is it allows you to find exactly what you're looking for better. Okay? So I like the search engine. So I can go, it's frustrating to go into a manual. Wait a minute now, what did I read back here? And try to find the stupid thing. Okay? So the search engine in the online manual makes it easier for you to find things. Okay? The other thing I want to show you here that's available online is the manual is available as an audio file online. Okay? We go to that same mindriveinfo.org, and then instead of clicking on the manual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to click on these audio files. So as an example here, I suppose if I turned on my audio system, it would work better. Well, what this does is that this reads you the manual, okay? And I'm a strong believer in audio files as learning tools.
You will not have to crawl under the hood or under the vehicle. 10.1. All vehicles. Study the following vehicle parts for the type of vehicle you will be using during the CDL skills tests. You should be able to identify each part and tell the examiner what you are looking for or inspecting.
So, get it? It reads you the manual, all right? What I'm suggesting to you is that this audio file is a very powerful learning tool. And I'm suggesting you use this to help you learn this information. As witness to the power of audio as a learning tool, complete the following, excuse me, complete the following sentence for me, please. Save big money at... Who didn't know that? Everybody in this room knows that if you've lived in Minnesota or Wisconsin for any length of time, right? So you didn't attempt to learn that. You didn't try to learn that. You didn't intend to learn that, but you learned it. How'd you learn it? Because you heard it. Now, here's what's interesting in terms of the sections that you need to study, okay? So you need to study section 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. So section 6 is 43 minutes long, okay? Section 5 is another 42 minutes long, so that's about an hour and a half total, right? Let's add in section 1, that's another 41 minutes. So we're up to an hour and a half, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Section 3 is the shortest, that's about 13 minutes, so now we're about 2.5 hours, right? So now let's add section 2. I'm waiting for your response to section 2. How long is that sucker? 3 hours and 15 minutes. So what's that tell you? It tells you that it's going to take you 6 hours at a normal reading pace to read these sections. Okay? Now, how many people in preparation for their permit test study this for 6 hours? Probably not very many. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here in a bit is I'm going to show you how to hone in, zero in, narrow in on the parts of the manual that need to be studied in order for you to be successful. But I would suggest you read the whole thing. The problem is, I mean, you're in school, you know, if they give you a chapter and say, study this chapter for a test, you don't really know what you're supposed to study, right? Within the chapter. So you have to study the whole thing, right? Well, I'm going to give you some tips to help you zone in on the parts of this information that are on the test to make better use of your time, okay? All right. Let's go back to my handout here. I'm going to switch this. Should have a better way of doing this. All right. So going back to my handout, underneath number 6, where the manual is available online in the audio file, it says only one permit test in any one subject is allowed per day. All right? Your first and second attempt in any of these tests is free. And this is true of Minnesota, not Wisconsin. Okay? In Wisconsin, you have 5 shots at it. They're all free, but that's it. If you fail a 5th test, you're done for a year. Okay? You Minnesotans, many tests as you want, but if you fail 2 of them starting on the 3rd try, $10 each time you take it. Okay? So that's the deal. In Wisconsin, 5 tests, they're all free. Minnesota, 2 free tests, and they start charging you $10. All right? Okay. The next thing that I'm stating here, the test is available on paper or with a computer. Now, those words are verbatim right out of the manual. Okay? My next sentence here is mine. Most exam stations will require you to take your first test on the computer. The computers have headphones you can listen to. Mackenzie, right? So, to my knowledge, they don't have a paper version over there. Maybe they do. I don't know. Okay? The good news about the computer test you're going to take is you can skip questions. Okay? Now, I don't like the Minnesota computer test for a couple of reasons. One is they don't let you skip questions. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but the way my little brain works, I can't tell you how many times I forget something and moments later I remember it. With the computer in Minnesota, And again, she's taking it in Wisconsin. She can skip questions and come back to them later. You guys can't on the computer. And that frustrates me because you're stuck with a question that you might be stumped with. All right? Now, the computers have headphones in both places. A minute ago, I was telling you that I believe in the audio file as a learning tool. When it comes to test taking, however, I don't like the audio. Here's why. When a person writes a test, they write the questions the best they can to get people to pick the wrong answer. I mean, would you show a picture of an orange construction sign and say what color is a construction sign? Would you? I mean, you're not going to make it so simple that it's like, okay, I can figure that out. I mean, you got to have some sort of intellect involved here. And so part of what they do, so as an example, there's a question that you may very well see on the test that says, what is the correct minimum tread depth for tires other than the front tires? What's the correct answer?
232.
Okay. Now you heard every word I said. If you hadn't heard other than, you'd have answered 430 seconds. Now why didn't they just ask the question, what is the correct tread depth for rear tires? Why didn't they say that? See, guys like me, I'll mess that up. Because my brain will pick up everything but them two words. And I'll get it wrong. Because I didn't pick up other than. I picked up minimum correct tread depth rear tires or front tires. 430 seconds. What do you mean? Front tires are front. Oh, crap. I read the question wrong. They do that on purpose, okay? And here's the kind of question that I struggle with the most. Which of the following is false? So in other words, the wrong answer is the right answer. I don't know about the rest of you, but that makes me crazy. Well, that one's correct, that one's correct, that one's false, that one's correct. So the correct answer is the false? That just messes my little brain up, okay? How can the wrong answer be the right answer? But it is. And so when somebody's reading that to me with an audio, it doesn't help me. If anything, it hurts me. So I just do not use the headphones, okay? I don't like the fact that you can't skip questions. You know another thing I don't like about the computer? When you're taking the computerized test, if you do get a question wrong, it immediately tells you. And now my little brain's distracted. Oh, that's one. Oh, that's two. And I'm counting in my head how many I got wrong. Okay? So now instead of focused on answering the right question, my little brain's off over here getting all worked up in a tizzy because I don't want to fail the test, right? I like the paper version. Why do I like the paper version? I can skip questions and come back to them. If you do that, make sure you come back to them, because if you leave it blank, you get it wrong. Nobody's standing there telling me, I ain't got that one right, got that one wrong. Nobody's standing on my shoulder telling me. So this is one of those ignorance is bliss things. I think I'm better off not knowing till the end. And then here's a big difference between these two, okay? So with the Minnesota version, this is not true with your test because you can skip. So because you can skip questions, if the general knowledge has 50 questions, which it does in Minnesota, it's 50 questions, okay? So because Wisconsin allows her to skip on the computer, she can see all 50 questions. Now the way the computer is programmed in Minnesota, as soon as you fail the test, it shuts you off. And you have to get 80%. That's true in Wisconsin. You got to get 80% correct to pass the test, okay? So the general knowledge, which is 50 questions, you can get a maximum of 8 wrong. You get 9 wrong, you fail the test. Well, what if you're having a bad day and you get 9 out of the first 20 wrong? How many questions have you seen? 20. If you'd taken the paper version, how many questions would you have seen? All 50. You come back the next day to take the computer again. Questions are all jumbled up. If you take the paper one a second time, there's 2 versions. They only have 2 versions of the test on paper. So they'll give you the second version on the second day. What if you fail it then? You've seen every single question they have. And that's pretty helpful to go back and study to come back and pass the test, wouldn't it be? Whereas Minnesota, you might only see 20 questions the first time. Then you see 25. Then you see 30. Then you see 35. You might have to go 6, 7 times before you even get close to all 50 questions. Okay? I think the paper one is an advantage for many of us. Now, here's what's going on, though. As my little handout tells you, the large exam stations here in the metropolitan area, so that is Eagan, Arden Hills, Plymouth, downtown St. Paul, Lake Street in Minneapolis, Chaska, Anoka, Hastings, they have these computers, okay? The smaller exam stations that are only open 1 or 2 days a week, in some cases only twice a month, those smaller exam stations do not have the computers, okay? If you go to one of the larger exam stations that have the computers, and you walk in and you say, I'd like to take my CDL Class A permit test, they'll say, fine, go over to machine number 2. So if you were to say, well, I'd like to take it on paper, they'll say no. Okay? Now, if I were you, I wouldn't take no for an answer. I would very respectfully say, well, your manual says that I'm allowed to take this on paper, so I'd like to take it on paper. I mean, this is exactly what it says in the manual, people. The test's available on paper or with a computer. It doesn't say you have to take it on a computer. Well, we have a policy that we want you to take it on the computer first. Look, if you had a policy that said black people got to go to a different restroom than white people, would that fly? Yeah, it ain't flying. Rosa Parks had the audacity to change this country, didn't she? You know who Rosa Parks is? She's the one that stood up on that bus and said, I ain't going to the back. You're not treating me any different than any other person in this country. I don't care that I'm black. I ain't going to the back of your bus. If Joe can go to Red Wing and take it on paper, why can't you take it on paper in Hastings or Eagan or Plymouth? Explain that to me. Because if they're going to follow the Constitution, okay, be polite, be professional, be courteous. Don't get hissy, don't raise your voice. They'll throw you out. Okay? But stand your ground if you want the paper one. Very politely. May I see a supervisor, please? Miss Supervisor, now as I understand it, there's 92 places in this state to take the test. I can show you that on their website. There's 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take this test. And there isn't but about a dozen or maybe 15 at the most that have the computers. Duluth, Rochester, the bigger exam stations do. But Red Wing, Stillwater, all of these little smaller towns do not have the computers. So it's on paper. There's no way in the world they can have a policy that forces you to do something that somebody else doesn't have to do if you don't want to do it. Make sense? So you explain that to them. There's other places in the state where this can be taken on paper the first time. You know, you would have to violate my constitutional rights in order to force me to do something that somebody else doesn't have to do. Agreed? I'll wait for the paper. And you know what their response is probably going to be? Did you go to that damn interstate truck driving school? All right, here's your stupid test. Don't mention my name, please. Okay? It won't help you. The state of Minnesota and I have butted heads on many occasions. But this is one of the things that frustrates me. Now, why won't they give it to you on paper? Why do you suppose they have that policy?
Work.
Well, the paper, I suppose the paper does cost something. It's the work. It's the 45 seconds it takes them to correct it. See, a keystroke will correct the computerized one. But the paper one, well, let's see. Let me put the key on here and correct that for you. Let's see. Give me a minute. Okay, you got an 82%. I mean, that's the problem. They don't want to do the paperwork. They don't want to take the time to do it. Okay. Why is it that DMVs across this country believe so strongly in the poorest possible customer service that's possible? Why is that? There's a public service commercial out there about a guy that's gonna, when he signs up for renews his license or whatever, he puts down that he's willing to be a donor. Okay, a public service commercial. And in that commercial, there's all these people sitting there waiting to get served. You've more than likely seen that commercial. I haven't seen it recently. But they even have it in commercials. Watch TV shows. Watch movies. Anytime somebody goes to the DMV, what are they doing? Waiting to get waited on. Okay? So why they do that is beyond me, but that's the deal. So if you want the paper one, I'd recommend you ask for it. At some point in time, if enough people are insistent, they'll quit making that a policy. All right. You must arrive at least an hour before the exam station closes. If an exam station closes at 4:30, they lock the doors at 3:45. Here again, customer service. If Menards is open till 10, do they close the doors at 9:15? No, they don't. Okay, but these guys do. The only time limit in play is their hours of operation. So if you get there first thing in the morning, you can be there all day. List of exam stations is available at mindriveinfo.org also. Now, you can take one subject at a time if that works best for you. So you could go in on Monday and take one test, go back on Tuesday, take another test, go back on Wednesday and take a third test. That's fine. You can even split it up within the same day. Go in first thing, take one of the tests. I'll be back, you say. Go out in the parking lot, roll the window down, listen to some nice music, study your manual some more, go back in and take the next test. I'll be back, go out in the parking lot, and repeat that. You can do that. You do not have to do these tests at one setting. Now, let me caution you about this. It's extremely important excuse me, that you document everything and anything you do with these people. All right? For the sake of discussion, a person goes in, takes the test at 8:30, they pass it. 9:30, they go up to the counter, okay, I'm going to be back. The clerk says, well, I'll hold on to your paperwork here. That's fine. Just come on back and see me when you're done. So you go out to your car to study. That person gets a call from their daycare center. Their kid is sick. Where are they going? Daycare. Out the door to daycare. Daycare's kicking the kid out. Kid's puking. Okay? So you come back in 20 minutes later. Yeah, I was here earlier. I passed my general knowledge test. I like to take my air brakes test now. Oh, well, we can't find your paperwork here. Well, there was this gal here. I don't see her now, but oh, that must have been Martha. She had to leave. Her kid got sick. I was here not more than an hour ago when I passed that test. You know what they'll say to you? Well, if you pass it once, you can pass it again. Go on over there to machine number 2. Okay? Now, I'm not kidding you. Pay attention to every document they give you. Check it. And record it electronically so that you don't lose it. These people are terrible at this stuff. And your driver's license is a very important document. Okay? You can't get it on an airplane if you don't have the right document. Okay? You get pulled over by the police, you're going to get in trouble if you don't have the right document. And one of the things that's been going on in recent years especially is they've been making mistakes on these driver's licenses. That's happened to you? What'd they do to you?
The wrong address.
Yep.
Wrong address on my license.
So, with the commercial side of it, we have customers getting the wrong license. We have people taking Class A tests getting Class B licenses. We have people taking Class B tests getting Class A licenses. We have people taking tests in automatic transmissions getting licenses that are unrestricted. We have people taking tests in manual transmissions getting restricted licenses. I had a customer here a while back. The restriction on the back of his license said no air brakes. He didn't see that. He got the license in the mail, didn't read the back of his license. He's out there driving. He gets pulled over at scale in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin trooper says, son, you can't drive this truck. Oh, sorry, officer, what? Son, you can't drive this truck. Well, why is that, officer? Look right here, son. It says, no air brakes. You're restricted. You can't drive a vehicle with air brakes. Officer, I've been driving this truck for a year and a half. Well, you've been driving illegal for a year and a half. Better call your boss because you ain't leaving with that truck. Okay? This stuff happens all the time. I can't tell you how important it is that you document this stuff. We had a customer recently. So he goes in to get his permit, right? And I told you need a valid driver's license to do this, right? So he goes in to get his permit, takes his test, passed them. He's got his certified birth certificate. Those of you in Hudson missed that part. You need a certified birth certificate. Your handout has all this information. So he goes up the counter. He's got all his stuff. And he says, oh, by the way, the city on my license here is misspelled. Oh, well, we got to fix that. And it was Edina, okay? And it was misspelled. So here, you got to fill out this form here. Let's take care of that, okay? So he gets that all filled out. And I don't know what they charge him for him, not a much. But so they, okay, here you go. Now they took his license, they stamped it void, punched it void, okay? Gave him his paperwork back and said, okay, here you go. And he says, well, what about my permit? Oh, well, you have to get a new license first. Excuse me? Yeah, you have to wait until your new license comes in the mail before we can give you your permit. How long does that take in Minnesota? 2 months? More like 2 months, okay? You know what he should have done? He's got his mouth shut and not said anything about he done it being misspelled. Because it delayed him being able to get his permit for 2 months. Because he had to wait for this to come in the mail. Is that crazy or what? Let me tell you this story. So we had a customer, June 21st, 2017, took his road test out, the Egan exam station, passed. Didn't have his birth certificate with him. So the next day, because he lived out that way, he went to Chaska to pay for it. So a month later, towards the end of July, he gets a letter from the state of Minnesota, and the letter says, you've applied for a Class A license. There's no record of you taking a road test. You have to take and pass the CDL road test before you can be issued a commercial driver's license. Go take a road test. He goes to Chaska and he goes, look at this letter I just got. And they go, yep, no road test. Dude, I took a road test June 21st at Egan. Well, go to Egan then. So he drives over to Egan. Look at this letter. Yep, no road test. I was here on June 21st at 12:30 in the afternoon. I took and I passed the road test. No, you didn't. She drives over here. Guys, look at this letter. Can you help me? First thing I said to him is, did you keep the piece of paper that the examiner gave you that showed you passed the test? Oh, I don't know where that is. I might have lost it or put it through. I don't know where it is. So, okay, well, let's at least do this. Now, I have dash cameras in all of my trucks. And that's one of the battles I had with the state of Minnesota starting in 2011. I put dash cameras in my trucks. I didn't ask for permission to exercise my constitutional right to record public officials performing official duties in the public. Boy, did the state of Minnesota get mad at me. Holy smokes, did they get mad at me. They tried to put me out of business. They tried to shut me down. I can show you the letter. Mr. Collins, your license to operate a school is suspended for 365 days. Your personal instructor's license is suspended for 365 days. And everybody that works for you is suspended for 365 days. Good news is, in the United States of America, there's this thing called due process. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to hire a good attorney. Not only did that suspension not fly, but I got a judge to order the state of Minnesota to leave them damn cameras on in my trucks. So the good news is I got this video of this examiner. Oh, congratulations, Freddie, you passed your test. Oh, thank you very much. Now here's a couple things you got to work on. Okay. All right, now you can take this paperwork and go in and get your license. Can I do that here? Sure, you can do that here. I didn't bring my birth certificate with me. Do I need that? Oh, yeah, you got to have the birth certificate. Okay, well, can I go someplace else to get it? Oh, sure, anywhere you want in the state. Can I go to Chaska? Sure, go to Chaska. We got this whole conversation on videotape with a inward-facing dash camera. Okay, our dash cameras go both directions. Audio, the whole bit. So what I did was I played that on the monitor and had him videotape it with his phone. I said, go to Egan and show him the video. So he drives out to Egan. I got video proof. They don't care. Chaska's the one that messed this up. Go to Chaska. He drives to Chaska. I got video proof. Chaska says, it ain't us, it's Egan. Go back to Egan. He's at Egan for the third time same day. Would you be mad by now? Oh. And he goes in there, and here's what they say to him. He says, I got video proof, and here's what they say. We don't care. We're not even looking at the video. You're not in the computer. You're not in the computer. There's nothing we can do about it. So he calls me from there. I said, have you spoken to the supervisor? Yeah. Which one is it? Jessica. I says, okay, tell Jessica two things. Tell her that when I hang up, I'm calling my attorney. His name's Paul Applebaum. She can expect a call from him as soon as I can get a hold of him. Secondly, as soon as I leave a message for Mr. Applebaum, I'm going to call my friends at KSTP Television. I advertise with them guys. I got a little bit of pull, not a lot, but a little bit. And I'm going to call them and I'm going to tell them what's going on. I'm going to tell them that you got video proof that you passed the test, and the state of Minnesota won't even look at it. And I'm going to see if I can get one of their news people to stop out there and interview you and show this video to them. He calls me back 5 minutes later. It's taken care of now. What kind of an agency won't even look at the video? The video is their guy saying to him this Minnesotan, congratulations, you passed your test. They're the ones that messed up, not him. And they won't even look at the video? Come on, what kind of an agency is that? That same guy is still working there right now, today. He still works there. And he's still messing people up because we're seeing it. We're seeing mistakes on licenses that guy's doing because he's not competent at his job. Now, does he get disciplined, suspended, retrained? Probably promoted, right? So my point to you is be very anal about documenting this stuff. Check it. Take pictures of anything that they don't give you. If they don't give you a document, take a picture of that document. Don't walk out of there without proof that you've done something. When you fill out forms, be very careful with your penmanship. If you can't print clearly, bring your little brother or sister with. Have them do it, okay? You got to print clearly so this clerk downtown doesn't mess up typing it in, okay? And then when you get the license in the mail, make sure it's correct. All right. And I wonder why I have a high blood pressure. CDL medical self-certification. That's the last thing on this first page. I want to talk about that. What I'm going to explain to you right now is worth your time alone. If you learn nothing else from being here today, this information is going to be very helpful to you. Okay? Take your handout and flip it to the very back page. That is the CDL medical self-certification form. Just take the handout and flip it right to the back. Okay? The federal government requires this form be filled out when you get your permit. Okay? Now, you have to self-certify that you fit into one of 4 categories. You see the 4 categories right here? Category 1, non-exempt interstate. Category 2, exempt interstate. Category 3, non-exempt intrastate. Category 4, exempt intrastate. Now, the difference between interstate and intrastate for your perspective as a potential commercial driver is this. If you're intrastate, that means you can't cross state lines with a commercial license. Now, there's 2 kinds of people that fit into the intrastate category. Under age 21. Is anybody under age 21? Okay, so you're limited to intrastate. We only have fond memories of those days. Okay? All right. The other person that fits into the category of intrastate is a person that can't pass a federal level DOT physical. The threshold is higher for the federal level than it is the state level. Example. On the federal level, you have to be able to see 20/40 with both eyes. Correction allowed. On the state level, you can get by with 20/40 with one eye. Okay? So a person that had poor vision in one eye can drive a garbage truck or a dump truck within the state of Minnesota, but they can't drive a big rig and cross state lines. Make sense? All right. Now, you can get your permit without having the medical. Does anybody already have the DOT medical? Okay, a couple of you. All right? And incidentally, if you haven't been to a doctor in recent years, I would get in and get the physical as soon as possible. Why go through all the effort to pursue this process if you can't pass a physical? And if you haven't been to a doctor in several years, you might have something going on that you don't know about. Okay? It's a very minimal physical, by the way. They check your blood pressure, your vision, your hearing. You do pee in a cup. They're checking for high blood sugars and blood in your urine. But that's it. I mean, it's a pretty minimal physical. But the big thing that messes people up is blood pressure. There are a lot of people out there with high blood pressure that don't know it. Okay? Had a customer come to me a while back. Yeah, Bill, I took your advice and I got that physical the first week and I found out I had high blood pressure. So good thing I did that so that I could get it under control by the time I finished school. I said to him, well, it's a good thing you found out before you died. I mean, come on, that can kill you, okay? So if you haven't been to a doctor in several years, get into that DOT physical right from the get-go. Now, do you need a current DOT physical to get your permit? No. Do you need a current DOT physical to get your license? No. Now, those of you in Wisconsin, and Mackenzie with you being enrolled in our program, you do have to have a DOT physical to drive our trucks in Wisconsin. It's a Wisconsin rule, okay? But for the purposes of the general public, you do not have to have the DOT physical to get the permit nor to get the license. However, some of these people that work for the state of Minnesota are of the mind that you do have to have the physical to get the permit. No, you don't. You have an option right here, not required. It says it right here, exempt. That means it's not required. Why would the federal government give you the option of being exempt if the state of Minnesota won't let you be exempt? All right? So if you don't have the physical, fine. And the way this works, let's say, just for the sake of discussion, let's say you go get your license and you go in to apply for a job, driving truck. You know, I want to apply for that job that I saw on Craigslist. Here's my license. Physical? Oh, I don't have that yet. CVS down the block? They'll do it? How long will it? All right, I'll be back. An hour later, you're back in the same place. Okay, here's my license. Here's my medical. I just got it. That's how easy it is to get a DOT physical. It's not difficult to get them. Okay? Now, you do have to go to a registered provider. And so you got to figure out where the registered provider is. And last time I looked, there weren't a lot of CVSs that did it, by the way. I should clarify that a little bit. So getting a medical is not a tough deal. It's not like trying to get in to see the doctor for something else. I spent, honest to God, before this class, I spent 35 minutes on the phone trying to make an appointment for something with the doctor and ended up not being able to make the appointment because they didn't have my records. They called me to make me an appointment without having my records. Well, what do you need? Well, anyway. Now, here's what's really important that you understand. When you do need a DOT physical to drive a commercial vehicle and get paid to do it, who doesn't need one? Some government jobs, and if you're using a commercial vehicle for personal use. And that's a possibility. If I win the lottery tomorrow night, my wife would expect the purchase of a hobby farm complete with horses by the weekend. And then sometime next week, the purchase of a truck and a trailer capable of hauling 4 horses so she can take her horse and 3 of her friends and their horses and go trail riding. Now, that size truck and trailer is going to be a Class A rig. With the weight capacity to haul 4 horses, that'll be a Class A rig. So I'm going to go over to Allstate Peterbilt with all my money, buy a nice shiny chrome automatic transmission truck. I'm going to go out to Featherlight in Elko, buy a nice shiny aluminum horse trailer. And my wife will have to come here, get her Class A license, but she doesn't need a DOT physical. This isn't a commercial use. She doesn't need to follow the hours of service regulations. The vehicles don't need to be inspected. None of those commercial rules apply to her. Now, she has to be very careful. She can't sell hay and deliver it with that truck. She can't even charge her friends gas money. She can't take in any money for the use of that vehicle because then it becomes commercial, okay? So my point is that there are certainly situations where a person is exempt from this rule and can obtain and maintain a commercial license without having a DOT physical. Now, when you are going to work for somebody, you have to certify that you have the physical. And notice what it says on the form. It says a copy must be submitted. Okay? When you submit a copy of this physical to the state of Minnesota, they now know, not only do they know about your physical, they know about the expiration date. Okay? So let me do this. I'm going to go to the public website here and put my DOT physical on the screen, excuse me, my public record of my license on the screen here. So I'm going to mindriveinfo.org to do this. And if the computer would cooperate with me, go right here to check a driver's license status. I'm going to type in my driver's license number. This is me, okay? Now, I have a Class A license, right? So my Class D is unlicensed and in good standing. My commercial, I'm valid, licensed, in good standing. Here are my endorsements, motorcycle, tanker, passenger. I have no restrictions, okay? Now here's my medical, my CDL medical. I'm certified, and I'm certified Category 1, non-exempt Interstate. But here's the big kicker to this whole deal. Here's my expiration date. Okay? Now, I told you I have high blood pressure, and I'm on meds for that. I've got the blood pressure under control. Water is a big help, by the way. But because I'm on meds, my physical is only good for a year. My medical expires every single year. Okay? Now, 60 days before this medical expires, I'm going to get another letter in the mail from the state. I can remember this verbatim because I've gotten so many of them over the years. But this letter is going to say, Dear William, this letter is sent to you as a courtesy by Driver Vehicle Services Division, notifying you that your CDL medical self-certification is going to expire on the 20th of May. If you wish to maintain your CDL driving privileges, you must resubmit a new certification. Here's the deal, people. If I don't renew this form, if I don't send this form in back by May 20th, what happens on May 21st? I lose my CDL. My CDL will be taken away from me. I will have a Class D license on May 21st. Now, if I realize this mistake that I've made within 365 days and I can reinstate myself, but what if I waited until the expiration date of my license? Look when my license expires. 2 full years later. 2 full years later. If I go in June of 2022 to renew my license,
So I'm here to renew my CDL, please, so I can make Class A.
well, Mr. Collins, you don't have a Class A anymore. Excuse me? Yeah, you got a Class D. Yeah, I'm looking right. It's Class A. Well, you used to have a Class A, Mr. Collins. Okay, I didn't have any accidents or tickets. What happened? Well, back in 2020, in May 20th of 2020, you didn't recertify, and as a result, your license has been taken away from you. So it's the medical that was the problem? Yep, that's right. Well, I got a brand new one right here. I do this every year. I got a new one right here. Are we good? Well, you can go take your permit test. And if you pass it, we can give you a permit again. And then you got to wait 14 days. And then you can take a road test. And if you pass that, you get your license back. That is happening to people. We had a guy in the permit prep class just this last week. On Saturday, I think it was. He's a former student. He went through here 3-4 years ago, got his license. He lost the dang thing because he forgot to send this stupid form back in. Now, let me bring this to your attention. Remember this, okay? Remember this. Once you go through the effort of getting the CDL, keep the dang thing, okay? But let's say, for the sake of discussion, you get your CDL. Let's say you're healthier than I am, and your medical is good for 2 years, okay? So you get the CDL, you get the medical, you get a job. A year later, something else comes up. Now you're not driving truck. 10 months after that, you get the letter. Dear so-and-so, your thing is going to expire. You look at that and you go, dang, well, I ain't driving truck. I'm not going to spend the money on another physical. Take this form, check exempt, and fax it in. You get to keep your CDL forever. You'll have to pay for it when you renew, okay? But you go into the exempt status, and you'll never get booted out once you're in the exempt status. So then, and this kind of goes back to my little story a few minutes ago about going down to CVS to get a physical. 3 years later, you want to go back to driving truck. Fine, just go get a physical. And then send it back in as certified now. Now you can drive the dang truck. Simple, huh? Don't forget to recertify this form. Don't let this form expire on you. But if you're in the exempt category, it doesn't expire. If you're in the required category, it'll expire on the date of the medical. Make sense? Okay. All right. Now let's talk about how to pass the test. This manual was written back in the 1980s. Prior to the manual, drivers did not need to take a knowledge test. I got my license, I got my commercial and my Class A license back in 1975. I didn't have to take any knowledge test. Just went in, got the permit, drove around, took the road test. The road test is a lot simpler than it is today. So in the middle 1980s, the feds contracted with an organization called AMBA to create the manual and the testing procedures and the whole 9 yards. All of that is put together by this organization called AMBA, American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. Now, AMBA's primary function is to serve as a clearinghouse so that you and I can move around the country, change our driver's licenses. You and I can go buy cars in states where they don't have rust and come back here and title them here. You ever seen a 10-year-old car with no rust? Okay, didn't come from Minnesota, right? So that's what AMBA does. It acts as this clearinghouse between states. Now, incidentally, once you get your CDL, you can transfer it to any state in the union. When you do that, you will have to take a car knowledge test to do that transfer, but you won't have to take any CDL testing at all. That'll transfer right over because that's federally regulated. Why are you going to have to take the car test stuff? Because there are differences one state to another with some of the rules and regulations. As an example, do you know what motorcyclists can do in California? Can't do anyplace else?
Between lanes.
Split lanes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Takes your breath away. Here you are in rush hour traffic, right? You're inching along and all of a sudden, 2 inches off your mirror. Not only secure the daylights out of you, but it's legal. It's like, you gotta be kidding. That's legal? It is. Did you know in Alaska, if you're on a highway and there's 5 vehicles behind you, you're required by Alaska law to pull over and let them by? Did you know that? Well, how would you know that? Huh?
In a commercial vehicle?
In anything. If you got 5 vehicles behind you, you're supposed to pull over and let them by. Okay? So my point is there are different rules in different states. So that's why you're going to have to take a knowledge test. Okay? Some states have anti-texting laws. Some states have hands-free cell phone laws. And just for 1 second here, do you know how strict this law is in Minnesota? Just that gets you a ticket. Just holding it in your hand gets you a ticket. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that you can't, if you put this in a cradle and then don't touch the sucker, you can use the GPS. But you can't pick it up into your GPS. You can't do it. It's illegal. Okay? So a lot of times I'll put my phone in a cradle just to make sure I don't accidentally pick it up. Okay? I mean, they're really strict about this in Minnesota, people. Okay? So stay away from you, and you can use the GPS incidentally in your dashboard. Whatever you want, that's okay. But you can't do the same thing to the cell phone. That's how strict the cell phone law is, okay? So be careful of that. A lot of people getting cell phone tickets. All right. So AMBA created this manual. They started testing everybody and even tested those of us that were previously licensed that hadn't taken a knowledge test. And when that started in the middle late 80s, there were a whole bunch of us truck drivers that couldn't pass the stupid knowledge test. Well, all these old-time truck drivers got pretty upset, called up Congress and said, hey, I've been driving a truck for 25 years. And now you're going to tell me I can't drive a truck because I can't pass no written test. So the feds went back to AMBA and they said, look, we've got to help these guys. They're not passing the test. What can you do to help people pass the test? So what they did in the manual is they created these little sections called Test Your Knowledge. And these are the questions on the test. If you take the green book I've given you and you turn to page 2-8, you will see the first of these Test Your Knowledge boxes. Okay? This is your study guide. This is like your crib notes. Okay? These Test Your Knowledge questions are the questions on the test. I guarantee you that. Now, some of this stuff is a no-brainer. So if we look at this first Test Your Knowledge box on page 2-8, the first question is, what's the most important reason for doing an inspection? Safety. Now, that's a no-brainer. You can all figure that out. But the next one, what things should you check during a trip? What do you suppose the correct answer to that question would be? And you know, if I handed out a piece of paper to every single one of you, the answers would be all over the board, wouldn't they? Tires, lights, cargo, all kinds of stuff, right? So let's do this. Let's use my search engine, and I'm going to type in during a trip. And here's the correct answer. For safety, you should check during a trip, watch your gauges, and use your senses. That's the correct answer. Now, this goes back to what I was telling you about test questions a little bit ago. Remember I told you they write these questions in such a way as to not make it easy. If the question had said, when you're actually driving down the road behind the wheel on the highway, what things should you check during the trip? You'd have known where to go for an answer, wouldn't you? You'd been able to, well, if I'm behind the steering wheel, there ain't much, I guess I check my gauges and, I don't know, listen for noises or something. You can figure out the correct answer if the question was phrased well enough. So let's say for the sake of discussion, you get this question, you get it wrong, and you challenge them afterwards. And you go up to the counter and you go, look, that's a bogus question. That question was so open-ended. You know what they're going to do? Well, look right here. Page 2-2. It says it right there. There's the correct answer. You didn't read the manual. It's in the manual. Okay? All of these questions come right out of the manual. When you type in what you're looking for in the search engine, you got to be careful. So during a trip, typed in correctly doesn't take me back to that test your knowledge box. And the reason is when they put it in the test your knowledge box, they misspelled it and they don't have a space between A and trip. So you got to be careful with what you search. If you can't find what you're looking for, try different variations. Number 3, name some key steering system parts. There's a diagram on page 2-2 that shows you those parts. Steering box, pitman arm, drag link, tie rod. Okay? Those parts are identified on page 2-2. So what I would do is I would take this manual and I would go in here and I would find that information on 2-2. Now, see that box right here? That's the steering system stuff. I'd highlight it. The next question in the test your knowledge box is, name some suspension system defects. So look at the left-hand column of that same page. There it is, isn't it? So what you're going to do by finding these test your knowledge questions and then going back into that section, finding the answers to those questions, now you know exactly what you need to study. Okay? And that'll narrow this manual considerably so that you can focus in on the questions you need to know. Number 5, what 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Anybody know?
Flares and
Okay, so flares or triangles, either one, but that's one thing. Fire extinguisher, and by the way, properly rated, that means a 5 BC, securely mounted and properly charged. What's the 3rd emergency equipment required?
First aid.
Nope.
Fuses.
Fuses. Now wait a second. Wouldn't first aid make a lot more sense? Right? That would make sense, but that's only required in school buses. Not regular buses and not trucks, but in school buses it is, but not regular buses or trucks. Now fuses are required in all the commercial vehicles. As emergency equipment? What? Are any of you mechanically inclined with auto electrical stuff? Anybody? What would happen if a fuse popped and I had a spare fuse and I put the spare fuse in? It'd pop again. So if they made us carry, along with spare fuses, wire, ohm meter, test light, tape, connectors, then I could see the logic of carrying fuses. But I see no logic in carrying a spare fuse. Okay? I own, I don't know, I probably own 10 commercial vehicles, and the bank owns the other 12. Okay? So I probably have 22 vehicles in my fleet. I've got spare fuses in every single one of them. I have no idea if they fit. I have no idea. I can care less. The rule says I have to have spare fuses. It doesn't say they have to fit. So there's fuses in the trucks. Been in business 21 and a half years. We've taken, I don't know, probably 15,000 road tests in that period of time. They've never checked to see if they fit. They check to see if you got fuses, but not if they fit. So we're supposed to have fuses. Just make sure you got fuses, okay? What's the minimum tread depth for front tires?
432.
430 seconds. Now, anything that's a number pertaining to this testing stuff, you need to know the number, okay? Now, tires are measured in 32nd of an inch increments. A tire tread depth gauge is how you measure the tread of a tire. You take the depth gauge, put it over your tread, push the probe down, read the probe. It'll tell you how many 32nds of an inch the tread is, okay? If there's a number, whether it's the permit test or the driving test, you need to know the number. So 430 seconds, that's not an eighth. I know that 1/8 and 430 seconds are the same amount of distance, but the correct answer is 430 seconds, not 1/8. 230 seconds for the rear, not a 16th. You need to know the distance that you put your triangles. You need to know at what point your low air warning signal comes on. You need to know at what point your emergency brakes come on. You need to know the formula for following distance. You need to know the formula for checking hydraulic brakes. You need to know the formula for going down a long, steep downgrade. So there are several things on the test that you will see. You need to know the correct numbers. So you need to remember those things, okay? Name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. And what they're looking for is lights. Number 8, what should wheel bearing seals be checked for? Leaks. Leaks, okay? Now, what's bad about grease leaking out of a hub? Gets on your brakes, it's going to affect your ability to brake. As you reduce the lubrication quantity in your hub, you got a spindle and bearings in there that are going around. Those are metal parts. You got to keep them lubricated. Take away the lubrication, they overheat and fail. Could very easily catch fire. That grease fire will catch the tire on fire. You're not putting that out with any fire extinguisher, let me tell you. Okay? That's going to take a fire truck to get that sucker out. And that can happen at any time. That should be checked pre-trip, in-route, post-trip. That should be checked constantly. How many red reflective triangles are you supposed to have? 3. Okay, here's one of the formulas I mentioned to you a minute ago. How do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks? Anybody know the formula?
Well, I think it's tap the brake 3 times and hold it 5 seconds.
Very good, excellent. He read the manual. I can tell who read the manual because he knows the formula, and that's the formula. Pump the brake pedal 3 times, hold it for 5 seconds. It can't go down during that 5 seconds of application. That's the formula. Pump 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. Okay? You can always tell when somebody's read the manual. Number 11 is a no-brainer. Why put the starter switch key in your pocket during a pre-trip inspection? So nobody drives off on you while you're doing a pre-trip inspection. Okay? Let's go to the next test your knowledge box. This is on page 2-10. If you want to follow along in your green book. Why should you back towards the driver's side? So you can see better. Number 2, if stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? Well, here again, this is old technology. In 1984, when this manual was written, rolling back was an issue. Not all the trucks were even diesel back then. Okay? So that was kind of problematic back in the day. Today it's not. With today's diesel trucks, with all of the torque that they have, I could be on the steepest hill there is, foot on the brake, put the clutch in, put it in low gear, let the clutch out so I feel that the clutch start to engage, take my foot off the brake, ease off the clutch, that truck will go right up that hill. Don't even have to give it any power because the fuel is electronically managed now. We're not driving a 1972 Ford Pinto. Okay? It's not going to buck and snort on you and stall the way a typical gas engine would. Okay? But the manual tells you, use your parking brake, or release it as you go. Why not just use your foot brake? Why go through all that? Or it says, use the trailer handbrake lever you got on your dashboard if you got one of them on a tractor trailer brake. Same thing. Why would you do that? You got a foot, you got a brake pedal. See, the reason that you would use either one of those, it would be to free up your right foot so that you can go to the gas, to give gas as you let go of the clutch. But what I'm telling you is with today's trucks, they got so much torque to them that you can leave your foot on the brake, let the clutch out till you feel it start to engage, then just take your foot off the brake and ease the clutch out. You'll go right up that hill. I guarantee it, with today's technology. Number 3, when backing, why is it important to use a helper? Blind spots is the key. That's the correct answer, to avoid blind spots. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree on? Stop, exactly. And, you know, people use all kinds of different gestures. Construction industry uses this. Military likes to use this, okay? Some people are doing this. So you and this other person got to figure that out. Here's a bonus question. What should you do when backing up if you lose sight of your helper? Stop. Get out of the truck and go find them, okay? Number 5. What are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift? Prior to going down a hill and prior to going around a curve. Okay? Number 6. When should you downshift automatic transmissions? Prior to going down a hill. Now here again, this is old technology. Today's automatics and automated manuals, the big rigs, these trucks, %98 of these big rigs that have been built in the last 4 years have automated manuals. You can get a manual transmission, but you'd have to special order it. Why have they gone to automated manuals? Because the fuel mileage is better and the emissions are reduced to meet federal standards. The trucking industry really likes the increased mileage. See, when the computer is shifting the transmission, that's smarter than you or me. And the only difference for you, incidentally, if 2 trucks were side by side at a traffic light on a highway, stopped, and the traffic light went green, which truck would accelerate faster, the manual or the automatic? The manual. The automatic, it's restricted. In other words, the computer is saying, nope, nope, no, we're not going to let you do that. Nope, 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 we're going to shift. Nope, nope, we're going to shift now. And the guy in the manual is like, going as fast as he can, wasting fuel. Get it? These things are designed to save fuel. So that's why it's a little slower accelerating. But they're really smart. In fact, the more sophisticated ones these days, they have GPS positioning programmed into the transmission. So you come across a hill, you start going up a hill, the truck knows which hill you're going up. And if it's a really steep hill that goes for a long distance, the truck will actually allow you to accelerate, to gain some momentum. But if the truck recognizes, nah, it ain't that big of a hill, and you're going to start down once you get over the other side in just a little bit, it won't let you speed up as much, saving fuel, okay? Here's the technology that I really like, by the way, is adaptive cruise control. Do you know what that is? Adaptive cruise control means when you put the cruise control on, this thing will maintain your following distance. It has, in essence, radar that's going out and finding the vehicle ahead of you. So let's say you put your cruise control on 65. You're driving along, and you catch up to some traffic that's going 61. It'll slow down to 61 miles an hour. And let's say something happens, and they all stop. This thing will stop. A little over a year ago, I went to a nephew's wedding, and I rented a Toyota that had adaptive cruise control. I liked it so much I came home and bought my wife a car with adaptive cruise control. She used to tailgate. Drive me crazy. Now she's got a car with adaptive cruise control. She doesn't tailgate anymore. I'm very happy. She does put it on the minimum distance, however, but she uses it, so I'm very happy about that. Okay? Now, get this. The trucks are so sophisticated. Get this. This is really cool. So, have you ever been on the freeway and there's two trucks blocking the two lanes? One's trying to pass the other one and can't get by. It's taking them forever to get by. You ever been in that situation? Well, that's because the trucks are governed. And so you might have a truck governed at 64 and the next guy's governed at 65. So the guy has got a 65-mile-an-hour truck and he can't go any faster than that. It's governed at that. And he wants to pass the 64-mile-an-hour truck. So nobody's around, he pulls out, but by the time he's even not halfway past, you're there. Speed limit 70, and you're trying to get by, and here's this truck going 65. Barely creeping by the other trucks. So you know what they've done? Apparently somebody in the trucking industry watched an IndyCar race. The IndyCars have push to pass. The IndyCar drivers have a button to push. It's limited as to how much they have access to. They all have equal amounts of this. But during the race, they can push a button and go faster. They get 50 more horsepower. And they start the race with so many seconds of this push to pass, okay? Well, somebody watched that, and now the trucks, these trucks are programmed. 65 mile an hour, but 30 minutes a day of 70. 30 minutes of 70. What's that for? So that the 65 mile an hour guy can speed up to 70, get past the 64 mile an hour truck, and get back in the right lane. How cool is that? Okay? Cool technology. I love this stuff. Okay? Now, the next question, or the question of when should you downshift an automatic transmission, these automated trucks know you're going down a hill. They know you're slowing down. They downshift automatically. And notice I'm saying automated manuals. The bigger trucks, they're not automatics. They're not automatic transmissions with torque converters the way our cars are. The Class 7 trucks, dump trucks and stuff, may have Allisons. Allisons are automatics. But the bigger Class 8 rigs have automated manuals. They're actually manual transmissions. And they're shifted with computerized pneumatic controls. But it's not an automatic. It's a manual. Okay? It's pretty fascinating. And they're programmed to downshift for you. All you got to do is slow down. I got a little diesel pickup truck with a 4-cylinder turbo diesel in that. It knows when I'm going down a hill. If I'm going down a hill, I got my foot off the gas. If the speed starts to climb, it automatically downshifts. I don't have to touch it. Now, the manual was written in 1984. It has no idea. There was no concept of that back then. So that's why the manual says you're supposed to downshift an automatic transmission before you start down a hill. Next question. Retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. What's a retarder? It's an engine brake. Now, why do nearly every big truck has an engine brake? Now, you can call it engine brake, engine retarder, or Jake brake. It's all the same thing. It was invented in 1960 by a Cummins motor engineer. Why did they invent an engine brake? Because these big trucks have drum brakes on them. And drum brakes aren't that good. The disc brakes are much better. Now, some of us started out with drum brakes, right? And they don't work so good. In a lot of situations, they're not anywhere near as good as disc brakes. But the majority of our trucks to this day still have drum brakes. You can get a truck and a trailer with disc brakes. The only trucks that are coming standard equipment with discs are the higher end, like the Peterbilts, Kenworths, and maybe some Volvos. But all the Freightliners and Internationals, those are still all drum brakes. All the trailers are still drum brakes. And the problem with drum brakes going down a hill is that they can overheat. And when they overheat, they fail. And you would lose your brakes. That's why we have truck runaway ramps in the mountain passes, because of trucks losing their brakes. So this Cummins engineer invented the engine brake. And it is significant help to reduce speed, maintain a reduced speed down a grade. It literally takes the internal combustion engine, and rather than turning it as a propulsion device, it turns it into a braking device. It shuts off the fuel, closes the exhaust valves, and now the piston can't go up the way it wants to, and that's causing a brake effect on the rear wheels. Okay? Now, all of these engine brakes are going to have a switch on the dashboard to turn them on and off. They're only on when you have your foot off the brake pedal. The majority of the trucks, the engine brake is adjustable. In my little pickup truck, it's an on or off. But in the bigger trucks, it'll be adjustable. Some of them are high and low. Most of the big trucks are high and medium and low. Okay? Now what that allows you to do is play with the adjustment to account for different grade as you go down. Okay? When you go down a grade, you slow down at the top, start down the grade at the correct speed. And so let's bring that to our mind for a second. If you are coming up to a grade that's marked at 25 miles an hour for a truck, what speed should you start down? 5 less than that, because that's your top speed. So if it's posted at 25, it's 25 mile an hour top speed. So you start down 5 less than that. Downshift engine brake, start down the grade. Now, with your engine brake in full on position, if the speed climbs back up to the maximum of 25, then you're supposed to use your brake to reduce your speed. Don't just use the brake to maintain speed. Why not? They'll overheat, you'll burn them up, they'll fade, and they'll fade. Okay? So we're going to use the brake to slow down. What's the formula for slowing down with a vehicle on a grade? Push the brake pedal firmly for 3 seconds and slow down by 5 miles an hour. Remember our 3 and 5 formula for a minute ago? Hydraulic brakes, pump 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. This is hold the brake for 3 seconds and slow down by 5 miles an hour. They're both 3 and 5 formulas, so that helps you remember them, huh? Okay? And I'll tell you this. We do a lot of our training over in Wisconsin because we take our students over there for testing. And there's a hill on County Road F between Hudson and Prescott, and it's pretty steep. And so if we take a truck over there and go down that hill, the speed will go up. And so who's ever behind the wheel needs to use the brake pedal to slow it down. 9 out of 10 of my students, when I'm working with them in that truck, and I say to them, okay, now get ready because you're going to have to use the brake pedal. You're going to have to slow down by 5 miles an hour in 3 seconds. Ready? Okay, hit the brake, slow down. I'm not kidding you. 9 out of 10 don't use the brake pedal firmly enough. They don't mush the brake pedal down hard enough to do that. You got to be pretty firm with the brake pedal to do this. Now the logic of this is a firm application on the brake for 3 seconds, then take your foot off the brake. What's the benefit? Cools the brakes. So you're on them and off of them. On them and off of them. Not steady on the brakes, that'll cause them to overheat. Get that? Now the engine brake, incidentally, the engine brake was invented by a Cummins engineer. They licensed it through the Jacobs company so that other manufacturers could use it and Cummins would get a royalty. Hence the nickname Jake brake. Okay? Now the engine brake is in your motor. Your motor is connected with the transmission, drive shaft, rear end to the rear wheels, right? So that's what's being slowed down. So the question at hand, will it cause a skid or reduce a skid? Well, how many of you when you were younger, when it snowed, you went out and found yourself a big parking lot? Anybody relate?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that e-brake made life fun, didn't it? Right? So if you were to reduce traction on your rear wheels when it's slippery, you're going to slide all over the place, right? So the correct answer to that question would be false. It's not going to keep it from skidding. It's going to actually cause it. The manual says when you're going down a grade, if it's wet, icy, or snow covered, you should be careful. Well, first of all, if it's wet, don't worry about it. If you're heavily loaded and it's raining, go ahead and use your engine brake. You're not going to have a problem. Trust me, you'll have an abundance of traction when you're loaded and heavy. When you're empty, you probably don't need the engine brake anyway. So what's the diff? Okay? Snow, you got to figure that out, don't you? You know, this manual is generic and published in all 50 states. We're Minnesotans, yeah? So we understand the difference between a 34-degree March snowstorm and a 5 below 0 January snowstorm, and how slippery one is versus the other. So you have to make a decision as to whether it's prudent to continue when it's snowing, right? Icy. You know where me and my trucks are when it's icy? Parked! We ain't going nowhere, okay? I am very conservative. I briefly mentioned 21 and a half years, 0 reportable collisions in 21 and a half years. Not a single insurance claim due to a collision in 21 and a half years. How proud of that do you suppose I am?
Very rough.
I run that all the way up the flagpole. Now, how did that happen? Because I got policies and procedures in place to keep things safe. If it's snowing, I'll tell my guys, okay, you can go ahead and do your training, but no hills. I don't want you in any hills that's snowing. Stay in the flat. And the minute it starts freezing drizzle, park that truck. Heck, it's not even safe to get out of the truck when it's icy, is it? Just walking is a... Some of us know how precarious that is. You young kids can slip and fall all you want. You don't hurt yourselves, but some of us, it's... Number 8, 2 ways to know when to shift. Engine speed and road speed. Use Test Your Knowledge. Highlight the correct answers in the section ahead of the Test Your Knowledge. You'll have the perfect study guide. Now, to finish up, I'd like to go look at the CDLtest.co. I'd like to do some practice quizzes. And you can access this through our website, by the way. Go to our website, click on Resources, and then Practice Permit Test right here. So this is CDLtest.co. This is what I'm recommending that you use. Let me get this on the screen for our Hudson participants. So let's take some practice quizzes. Name 3 types of emergency equipment that you must have. Ladies and gentlemen, I've proved already, have I not, that this is an accurate practice test for the Minnesota CDL exam.
Yes.
So where's the correct answer? So it's the first one. So that's pretty simple. Next question. Shut-off valves can be found at the front and back of each trailer. Now, this is a tricky question, and I hate questions like this. They're showing you a picture of a doubles configuration. And I'm telling you, those 2 trailers do have shut-off valves at the front and the back. But not every trailer does. Correct answer is false. You might think it's true based on the picture, but it's false. All right, here's one. The only way you're going to know the correct answer here is if you read the manual. That's just the only way you're going to know this. How far ahead does the manual say you're supposed to look while driving? You read it. You remember it? Okay. Exactly, 12 to 15. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 12 to 15 seconds. Now, had I not read the manual, I would have answered 15 to 20. Because I'm always looking as far as I can. This isn't about what you do or what I do. This is about what the manual tells you to do. Okay? That's the correct answer. There are things that the manual tells you to do that I would never do. What's a bobtail? The tractor itself with no trailer. Okay? What does communicating and safe driving mean? Turn signals. Okay? So it is your turn signals. All trucks, tractors, and buses must be equipped with emergency brakes and parking brakes. Now, that's true, but the interesting thing is these air brake systems with spring brakes, the emergency brake and the parking brake is actually the same brake. But the manual thinks it's 2 different brakes. So, as far as they're concerned, it's 2 different brakes. So we'll say true. What must you check before transporting a sealed load? This is a tricky question. What do you think? Well,
The load is properly secured.
The correct answer is that the load is properly secured, but how do you check that if the load is sealed? But that's the correct answer. I'm not kidding you. Now let me show you something that I would suggest you use for questions like this that you find confusing, okay? Use this to find the correct answer. So let's say you don't know. All right.
Well, let's see. Let's try the first one. Placard numbers match the seal. Oh, okay. That's not right.
Use the back button. Go back to the question.
Well, let's make sure the seal is. Well, that's not right. All right. Well, let's make sure the seal is secure. I guess. All right. That's good. Doggone it. Well, it's got to be the last one then. That's just load is secure. I don't know how you're supposed to do that, but let's. Okay, that's right. Then do this, people. Watch. Go back to the question with the correct answer on the screen. And then do this. Take a picture of it. Every question that you find confusing, take a picture of it. Now you go to take your test the next day. You pull into the parking lot. Pull in, shut your car off, roll the window down. Guess what I suggest you boot up? The pictures of the questions that you found to be confusing. What a perfect study guide. Now, what was that question I struggled with yesterday? Oh, yeah, that's the one. That seal thing. Okay, load is secured properly. Okay, I got it. I love these things. You know, I find it fascinating that anybody knows how to write or print anymore. We got these things. Why would you need to write or print anymore? We got a job board back here, and I see people back there writing stuff down. I'm like, what are you doing that for? Take a picture of it. You have an accident. You need the other driver's information. What do you do with their driver's license? Take a picture of it. What do you do with their insurance ID card? Take a picture of it. Take a picture of them. Okay? Don't ask. Just do it. Document stuff. I am crazy when it comes to documenting stuff. I don't let anybody that works for me hand me a Post-it note. I can lose a Post-it note. But I don't lose this stuff because I got this iCloud thing that everything's stored on, so it's all there, okay? So use this to find the correct answer, take pictures of it to help you remember stuff that you found confusing. Air compressor governor controls when the air compressor will pump air into the brake safety valves. True or false? False. It pumps it into the tanks, not the valves. When using your fire extinguisher, you should get as close as possible to the fire. You're a driver, not a fireman. If you're a fireman, the answer would be true. You're not a fireman, you're a driver. The answer is false. That diminishes the effectiveness of the fire extinguisher, by the way. Spring brakes are powerful springs that are held back by air pressure. If the air pressure is removed, the springs put the brakes on. True or false? True. That's exactly how they work, okay? Number 11. What does an alcohol evaporator help prevent? Does it help prevent water leaks? Does it help prevent air in the system? Does it help prevent dirt in the system? Does it help prevent air from leaking, or is it none of the above? It's none of the above. The alcohol evaporator prevents moisture from getting into your air system. Why is moisture in your air system bad? Because it can freeze up. Again, those of us in Minnesota, you know, we understand that. Wait a minute, what did I just do? I didn't answer it is what my problem was, right? You got to answer the question. Now here's a number. Now this is, I'm glad that this came up. The maximum leakage rates for an air brake system should be less than 2 psi in 1 minute for a single vehicle and less than 3 psi in 1 minute for a combination vehicle. A single vehicle is class B, a combination is a class A. Is that true or false? It is true.
Okay, well, let me show you something here real quick. See if I can find air leakage. No. Yeah, there it is. So the manual here is talking about the air leakage rate. And notice it says, this is important that you understand this. So I'm really glad that they reminded me of this. The loss rate, hang on, I'll make sure that Wisconsin looks at this. So the loss rate, the loss rate with no brakes applied should be less than 2 psi in a minute for single vehicles and less than 3 psi in 1 minute for combination vehicles. But then, this is important to understand, there's a different way of doing this. Then with the brake applied, hold it for a minute, and with the brake applied, can't be more than 3 pounds in a minute with a single or 4 pounds a minute in a combination. So it's important you understand that the amount of air that's allowed to leak out of your truck depends upon 2 factors. Are we talking about Class A or Class B? And are we talking about your foot on the brake or foot off the brake? And what's interesting is on the test, they like to ask the question with your foot off the brake. On the knowledge test. So your permit test, this is how they ask the question. Now that's foot off the brake. Guess what you're going to do during the road test? Foot on the brake. And so people get confused with that. There's 2 different ways to do it, foot on or foot off. What you're looking at on the screen is the correct answer. It's the off application, but that's correct. Okay? On your road test, you will be required to check the truck with your foot on the brake. So you have to remember those 2 differences between on or off the brake. Okay? So be mindful of that going forward. All right, that concludes my 30-minute class. Any questions? Yes?
Which one, when you go for the license, which do you say is the better one to go for, the manual or the automatic?
You want to drive an old truck or a new truck?
New truck?
Automatic.
All right.
See, here's the thing that is interesting about the automated trucks. Let's say 2 people go to work at the same place. Okay? She can drive a manual. You can only drive an automatic because your test is automatic. Which one of the 2 of them gets the brand new truck? He does. Which one of the 2 of them get the old POS? She does. What do you want to drive? I want the new truck where the air conditioning works. You know, one of our students called me, a former student called me this summer, and he's telling me, yeah, this truck I'm driving for this guy, the air conditioning doesn't work, and it really sucks. Remember how hot it was in the middle of summer? And he's like, is that a safety issue? Is there a complaint I can make? And I'm like, dude, no. That's not a safety issue. Your employer has no responsibility to provide you with a vehicle with air conditioning. Well, is he driving a brand new truck? No, he's not driving a brand new truck because the air conditioning works in the brand new truck. You want air conditioning? Drive a new truck. You want to drive a new truck? Then have a license that restricts you to automatic. And part of my logic here, people, is the demand for drivers is so strong. Puts you literally in the driver's seat. Every single one of you can get a job driving trucks with automatic transmissions. Now, if you are set up to get a job where they require the manual, okay, then I would agree that you should do that. Because the guy you're going to work for wants you to have it or needs you to have it. Fine, then do that. But to any of you that don't know what you want to do in this industry, don't have something already in mind, I do the automatic. Because I want to drive the new truck. Okay? I'm jealous. My wife's got the new car and I don't. I love driving a car with all the adaptive cruise control and the cameras and all the cool stuff in it. I don't have that.
But does that narrow you down with the places you can work for?
Yeah, it narrows you by about this much.
All right.
It's don't dump trucks, because that's for Class B, like some of the dump trucks, aren't those only manual specific?
No, if you're Schaefer Construction, which is one of the biggest construction companies in the state, they do a lot of the highway federal work, okay? All those trucks are automated. Now, are there construction companies with older trucks that are manual? Absolutely. So if you're going to go to work for Danner across the road here, then you do want a manual. He doesn't have any automatics. He's got old trucks. And he doesn't buy new trucks. He buys old trucks, okay? So you want to go to work for him? He doesn't pay very well, but he'll hire anybody. Okay? And that's how he gets away with it. He'll hire people with bad driving records, bad histories, and so he takes advantage of that and doesn't pay very well. But you want to drive a new truck? You want to be restricted to automatics. I would. I got a rig that I run over the country with to this day. I race cars, and I run around all over the country doing that. And my rig is automated. And you know the reason that I really prefer it is these big trucks, that manual transmission, the pressure you got to put in it, push with your left foot is significant. My last driving job, which was back in '96, '97, I was working for Penske Logistics, doing local delivering paper to printing companies. And I'm not kidding you, I'd come home at night and my left leg would be throbbing in pain from pushing that damn clutch in. Now I was backing into loading docks, and so I had to feather the clutch, okay? But I'm not kidding you. We got a new Volvo tractor while I was working there. It had one of these new ceramic clutches, and the thing just was a killer. And so honest to God, after about 2 weeks, I called up the Volvo service department, and I said, we just got one of these new trucks with a ceramic clutch, and the thing is really hard to push. Have you got anything we can put on this truck and make it easier to push? The service guy says to me, what kind of truck driver are you? I said, one with a sore left leg, and hung up on it. And now here's the interesting thing is, about 3 years later, after these ceramic clutches came out, they came out with what they call Easy Clutch. It's a lever system to make it easier to push those clutches in. Because there was a whole bunch of people like me bitching about these clutches. I'm not kidding you. I'd go home at night and my left leg, the whole thing is just throbbing. Because you have to push so hard. And you have to feather it. You can't just let the clutch out. That'll kill stuff, right? So, and here's another reason that I'm a strong advocate of the automatics. Statistics say the new driver with an automated has 30% fewer accidents.
You don't have to pay much attention to the shift.
Yeah, why would you want to do this? You just do this. What's the point? Do you know that the C8 Corvette, that new Corvette that's coming out, only comes in automatic? You can't get in a manual. You know why? Because nobody was buying manuals. The C7s, nobody was getting the manuals. They're all getting the automatics. And especially today with this. You know, the paddle shifters. I told you I race cars. I race against some people with some pretty high-end equipment. And these late model Porsches and BMWs, they're all automatics. I'm in there with my old 2004 Corvette. And they're not going. They got 2 pedals. I got 3. I got to shift the stupid thing. I'd love to be able to afford one of those things. Okay. So, I love technology. I would gravitate that direction if I were you. Any other questions?
What's the cost for a B license to qualify for?
Well, you can go take a test if you have your own truck. There's no cost to the test. The license itself will cost you $38 or something.
But I mean, to get ready for it.
The training?
Yeah, training.
The guys up at the front counter can answer that.
Okay.
It's my intention back here not to be giving any sales pitch.
Okay.
This is a free class, no strings attached. Okay? So if you'd like information, the guys up front can help you. If you got any questions about the test, I'll help you with that.
If you pass the one online, technically?
If you can pass cdltest.co online,
Yes.
then you're good shape.
Really?
Yes, I promise you.
And that's the 3 different tests, right? You said air brake, general knowledge, and then they can pass.
Combination. Yep.
And I know they also have the one for tanker. Is that something you should do as well?
You know, the one I would recommend, not so much tanker. I mean, that's not bad and it's easy to do. So sure, throw tanker in, but do hazmat. Now, you're not going to make more money per hour or per mile, but you'll have more work.
Alright, opens you up.
Okay?
to stuff, like
Mold opens you up for more freight. You know, there's simple things like battery acid. You can't even haul battery acid without a hazmat endorsement, right? Well, battery acid isn't that big of a deal, but you got to have the hazmat endorsement to do it. So if they want you to go to a warehouse to pick up battery acid, and you don't have your hazmat, you can't do it. So you're sitting in a truck stop someplace waiting for a load, and this other guy's got that load because he's got the hazmat and you don't. So I would recommend you get hazmat. Now, hazmat means you take the written test, and then you also have to go in for the FBI background check and fingerprinting. It costs about $90
To get the right.
Okay.
Name on there.
Well, you can do that either or. You can add hazmat with your permit or if you like.
You can get that later though, right?
Yep, you get that later.
Alright, so yeah, that's.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. You have to get it.
So the main
Yeah,
ones are
yeah.
just those three.
Yep. You bet.
And to do the audio book, it's very self-explanatory on the one.
Yep, mendriveinfo.org. So just go to the address that I've given you here. You bet. My pleasure. You bet. Thank you. I'm gonna go take my damn degree.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
What are you doing, B? For a dump truck?
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you're right.